Hello, it's Fran from psychicandenergywork.com.au. How's your April unfolding so far? It's a pretty full-on time right now, isn't it? It's full. There are a whole lot of explanations for why that's occurring out there on the internet, let alone in human form, as in face-to-face and direct. So make sure you check them out, however that suits you. One source that's well worth a look is Pam Gregory on YouTube, probably also through her website. She offers very useful videos that explain from an astrological perspective and spiritual the sorts of currents that we're experiencing at the moment collectively, and therefore those sorts of pictures can often help to place things. For me, it's certainly a busy time, and I'm not meaning personally, even though that's personally as well, excuse the background noise, but it's also, numerologically, it's been a couple of full months. Apparently, April is the time this year where the squeezing's really going to happen. Obviously, there's no guarantee that it's going to finish at the end of April for any of us. We have personal charts as well as collective charts to deal with and work through and embrace and enjoy. But for the moment, what I want to touch upon, especially for those people who may well be experiencing challenge right now, and rest assured you're not alone, is the fact that, okay, so in March and April, we've had a few master numbers visiting. In March, we saw 19.1, we saw 22.4, and we also saw 122, which reduces to 5 in the chart. On top of an 8, an 8-year, which is 2024. An 8-year or an 8 period, it doesn't have to be just a year, can be extra busy. In other words, noticeably busy, whether that's just on an energetic level, more things to contend with, on the invisible level, whether that's your own thoughts or feelings or energetic intuitive dynamics. It can also be a time that sees schedule very, very full, becoming fuller. It's almost the universe's way of saying, you know what? If I just keep turning up the speed on the treadmill, at what point are you going to take control of the device yourself and make the adjustments you need to so that you don't experience life out of balance, you don't create life out of balance, and of course you come to a place that is sustaining for all. So 8 years by themselves will do that. And again, if you've got a personal chart that's got 8s in it or even other master numbers in it, likelihood is that for this year, and we're not just talking your birth date, by the way, we're talking your full birth name, and we're also talking your reality number, which is the sum of your full birth name as well as your birth number. So those things are well worth getting across to the degree that you're not aware of them already, because sometimes numbers, just as astrology, can really add a whole lot of information that helps you go, you know what? That explains everything. So let's come back to this month and this year. Again, last month brought us 3 master numbers, right? This month, April 2024, we've got a 29.2, we've got a 33.6. Yeah, so we've only got 2 master numbers this month relative to March's 3s, but it's still a very powerful time. The other thing that I want to, so just double back there. Master numbers tend to introduce a greater level of spiritual to-dos. Master number periods, you could say, there are times that help us, guide us, force us to our intuition, to our spirituality, to our knowledge of self as we know it, rather than just an adopted model. Not necessarily because the models are wrong, but in a sense, it's master numbers help us really come to know life as an entity in itself, as a being in itself, and therefore as a communicative being, not just a landscape or a canvas that we paint on that's mute, silent, can't communicate. Life is very communicative, but do we actually open up to hear it, see it, observe it? and therefore all of the signals that it's trying to bring us, irrespective of their form. So master numbers can also be defined as moments where the universe, the divine, whatever your names are for it, goes boo. It's like, hi, I'm real. Get to know me to a new level. You with me? And that can be, yes, learning curves, stretchy stuff. It can also be like, oh my goodness, I don't believe that just happened. I'm absolutely out of my, out of my shoes. You with me? Over the moon, with what's happened that I did not expect. So master numbers can be very invisibly laden, whether that's because, again, you're talking spiritual stuff, intuitive or energetic stuff. And when I say stuff, it's also, experiences, therefore encounters with invisible things, not necessarily ghosts. Could just be energy. You know what? I'm just feeling out of sorts, or I just feel really cloudy, or I'm aware that excess energy is around me and it doesn't feel like mine, but how do I work with that? Master numbers are therefore more spiritual periods, than the norm, even though the norm can be spiritual enough. And when you have a couple of master numbers or 3 popping off at you all at the same time, especially within an 8-year or even a 5-year, things can get pretty loaded. So these last few months have been bound to stretch. And another observation I want to make about the chart just at the moment is the fact that in both March and April, we have low 1 counts relative to 2 counts. Now, what does that mean? 1 is self. So when 1 counts are high, we can see self feeling more reinforced, self being more, should we say, I don't know whether the word is obvious, but just more present in the landscape or the experience. And so one way that can play out is I feel more acknowledged, I feel more included, I feel like I matter. Now, of course, that can go into egoic overload in a way that we place too much emphasis on self or witness others doing that. But one can see, and therefore a 1 period that is high, or bear with me, not necessarily high, but roughly equal to the 2 count, because 2 is other, 2 is the world. So when we have a high 2 count relative to a low 1 count, which is what we've had these last couple of months, the emphasis can be more on the world rather than self. And what do I mean by that? On one level, that's a good thing. Again, if we're looking at it through an egoic prism, that's a brilliant thing, because, it's not all about us, is it? But you see, in terms of development, in terms of our experience of, should we say, how the universe is guiding or helping, whether we're able to sense it, etc., we're in a period where we've got very high 1 count relative to a lower 2 count, relatively high 2 count relative to a low 1 count, I'm going to get that right in a minute, we can start to move into victimhood. We can start to move into, why aren't I being supported? I don't feel like I'm being recognised, I feel like I'm being dismissed or overlooked by life or by others, even myself. And so low 1 relative to 2, because 2 is everyone else, 2 is socialisation, 2 is even belonging, 2 is what's your position, you see. So, and 2 is there to reinforce one's sense of self as well as develop it. So last month we had 6 1s, and that's still enough, especially if you've got 1s in your chart, and likelihood is you do. But also the 2 count was 12. So we had twice as much emphasis on the world and relationship. You with me? And again, that's brilliant in terms of learning curve and actualizing, should we say, good things. But when you're talking about where self or how self is experiencing that, one can get pretty deflated at certain moments in that period, simply because in one level there's not enough reinforcement flowing naturally, easily, without effort, that is about one, and therefore is about self, and therefore it's about, okay, so even if there's challenge in the outside world or coming from the outside world, even if I'm having difficulty interfacing with the world outside of me, I still feel sort of okay, I still sort of feel together, I still feel accompanied even by the universe in a way that I don't feel so alone, abandoned, hard done by, etc. This month, the ratio is even greater. So last month, 6 ones, 12 twos. 1 to 2 is the ratio, yeah? Or 2 to 1. So this month, we've got 4 ones and 10 twos. Now, whilst that's a slightly lower count on both, it's also a greater ratio. Now, we don't have to get too specific about that, but sometimes relativities with numbers really, really help explain things. And again, to the degree that you've just been feeling low in your petrol levels, low in the support levels, you're not alone. You're supposed to sort of be feeling stretched right now. The universe doesn't ever, I've said it before, the universe doesn't have 2 arms, 2 legs, a body to walk up to you to. You with me? And give you the reason, the message, the statement it's trying to show you. Sure, it's trying to impart those things through other beings and through creation, however you are experiencing it. But the universe itself, the explainer, the guidance, it's invisible, isn't it? And when challenge is on, we can lose sight of the invisible realm because our focus is pulled to what is more tangible, even if that's invisible. In other words, what's loudest, what's playing through loudest. We can lose sight of the subtleties, and we can seemingly lose connection with the subtleties. And therefore, the universe, our guidance, even though, of course, it's always present. So why do I say these things? Because partly, of course, in these moments, what really matters is our ability to process. There are all sorts of ways to do that, of course. Nature, for sure. Getting out in fresh air, especially if you're in warmer temperatures right now, yeah? But either way, fresh air, nature, movement, especially outdoors movement, again, assuming it's safe and comfortable to do that. What on an energetic level can really help, though, is sharing what you're experiencing internally and therefore sharing how you're feeling, what your words are right now about whatever it is you need to be processing, sharing that with the universe. Now, that's a pretty obvious thing to say in that I've said it before, lots of other people have said it before, there's lots out there about doing this stuff, but on one level, we can be inclined, because of all of our, shall we say, socialization, we can be inclined to only share what could be called what seems reasonable, what seems mature, what seems even spiritual. You with me? And yet if that's all we do, we're not actually doing our healing properly. Because often life doesn't shift in all the ways we know it can until we've released 100% of what we're harbouring, gripping, you with me, connecting in with. Yeah, we have to go the 100%. Now that doesn't necessarily mean run a marathon, even though some days it feels like it. It's more about the fact that when we're talking about processing stuff, balancing it out, healing it, releasing it, whatever those words are for you, it is not just about letting go of the energy, even though that's important. It's also about releasing the words. Because, of course, when we are in tough times, it can be really easy to move into our victim or our anger, our frustration, our toxicity on one level or another. And, of course, again, as social beings, likelihood is we've all been trained that we're not supposed to say certain things to elders, you with me, to the universe. We're not supposed to feel like that if we're being spiritual or nice. And yet, if those words are in you, if those words are somehow resonating through your being, they need to come out in their raw form, because energy doesn't move until you let it move as it is. That doesn't necessarily mean, of course, go share it with other humans, even though things like counselling, healing work, whatever the modality you choose, can be very useful ways to do this. But to the degree that you're doing it yourself, share what you are harbouring, what you're experiencing with the universe fully. And again, that includes the rude words. It includes the angry, the vehement words. You with me? It even includes the toxic words. Yeah? What matters in this is that you're doing it to heal and rebalance. The minute that the universe knows that, and of course it knows that, it knows us better than we know ourselves. But the minute the universe knows that, it's perfectly okay to share. Why? Because you're doing it to heal, you're doing it to balance out, you're doing it to get to a better place. And if you get to a better place, everybody else gets help getting to a better place, because everything's linked, isn't it? So doing this, whilst it can sound very easy, it's like, okay, all right, so I'll just share all the rude words, yeah. But you see, we're collecting vessels on an egoic level, and therefore on one level we function a bit like cupboards or filing cabinets, storage systems, archive units, yeah? And all of those things tend to have lots of corners, shelves, nooks and crannies. They tend to have lots of seams. Why do I say that? Because when we're sharing fully, we're allowing light, white light, and therefore the divine, source, universe, whatever you call it, we're allowing that into every seam of the storage container that is the human. And that's really important to say, because as human beings, we collect and gather. You know, I've used the analogy before, you know, when things come at us in volume, not necessarily number volume, just maybe louder, you know, more intense, whatever those words are. When they come at us in that fashion, it's a bit like the universe throwing a ball at us. The first thing we're going to do is catch it and hold that ball, just as a reflex, without even thinking. Why? So that it doesn't dong us in the forehead. But energetically, we also do that. And the trouble is that we often energetically forget to let the ball go once we've stopped it from coming at us in the way that it has. So that's also how we are collecting, gathering, acquisitive devices, if that's the word to say it. And often we will collect more than we are aware of, especially if we're energetically sensitive. If we sum all of that up into every day, every year, quite possibly every life that we have lived, then we can be reasonably full from time to time as storage units, in a way that, again, processing requires us to use our breath in through nose, out through mouth, and using our tummy to breathe, not just our chest, because that nets us a much better breath and a much better healing and clearing result. But also we use our breath in those moments to allow source in to all of the corners, all of the cells, all of the aspects of the storage container that is us, not just the physical but the energetic, not just the energetic but the mind, and therefore the mental compartments. You with me? Not just that, the video compartments, because we have visual memories. Let light go into your visual memory and clean it out. Cleaning out, clearing out, releasing, it doesn't mean throwing it away. It doesn't mean, you know, even though sometimes we're inclined to throw certain things away, aren't we? But, and there's nothing wrong with that if it feels right. But it is also about just let it go so that it can move to where it needs to be now. Because all atoms know where they need to be now. So the minute we release them, it's a bit like releasing a bird. A bird knows how it wants to fly. You let go of it and it will just take off. It might come back, it may not. But to the degree that it doesn't, it's just created space for a new bird to fly in. And whilst that might sound casual, that is life. Life is flow. And at the moment, life is more like an ocean with all the ways the waves can roll, second by second, angle by angle, rather than a river that perhaps is a little bit smoother. So share, and don't be afraid to share. And again, what I'm talking about here is the sharing with the universe. So find a quiet space, find a space that is safe for you to release, not only if you need to mutter or say things out loud, but also if you need to emote, cry. Yeah, release on that level. Find a space that will support that in a way that nobody intrudes, no one can judge, and to the degree that you need a hand, find somebody who can work this process with you in a way that is non-judgmental and supportive. So, again, come back to your ability to express. Allow the words out that you might feel uncomfortable about sharing. Because the more you do that, the more the crux of the matter is being given the air it needs to morph and release and heal. The more you share it with the divine, knowing that the divine is the only one that's hearing it, and also knowing that it's only there because there's a gem underneath it. We're only in stuckness, we're only in negativity because there's a part of our egoic self that hasn't quite realized something of real value and use with which to run forward. And the minute that we release fully, we create the space to see, we create the space to receive the guidance on what we've been harboring, why we've been harboring it, and how it's now turning into an incredibly useful asset, skill, piece of knowledge, whatever, that we can run with moving forward in a way that benefits us, but also benefits and releases the rest of humanity, creation actually, not just humanity. So again, on a healing level, go for it this month. If you're feeling frustrated, tense, overwhelmed, underwhelmed really, then use your breath, use your breath, use your breath to let go, use your breath to release yourself from the immediacy of what's going on. Not because you deny what you need to do in the physical, but you also create the room for miracle to the degree that it can drop in. I hope this really helps you. I wish you all the very best for the rest of April. It's supposed to be our hardest period. Be aware that those 1 counts relative to the 2s are factoring in. Be aware that you're not alone. We're all learning a completely new dance right now, and we're not even in the process of moving into that class in a way that we're not struggling with just releasing the old one. Things are exploding, literally, in all sorts of ways. And to the degree that you've experienced that, to the degree that it's on a level that is more than one thing at a time, you're not alone. So enjoy, shall we say. Breathe. Know the universe is real. Hello, I let you in. It can be as easy as that. Thank you very much for tuning in. Speak to you mid-May. Travel well. Keep the faith. Keep your focus. Onwards, upwards. That's the way we maximize everything.